welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the mortgage architects that are building design into their business to unlock scale and achieve freedom. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who got his start in one of the biggest subprime lenders in the country with a faxed paycheck and a leap of faith. Relocated his family, learned the hard way, and spent over 20 years building a business in Wilmington, North Carolina, grounded entirely in one thing: helping as many families as possible, regardless of loan size. Richard Lytle, welcome to the Lowdown.
Thank you, Connor. It's an honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to have you on the show and really just kind of go through your story here. It's been good getting to know you, and I know the listeners are going to gain a lot of value from this because I think you share a lot of what our listeners go through, and so I think this will be a very people will connect really well with your story. But you got into the mortgage business because a buddy of yours faxed you his paycheck, and for anyone listening who doesn't know what that means, there used to be machines called fax machines that would transmit. It was like a copy machine. Anyway, most people talk about kind of finding their purpose, but yours starts with like a piece of paper just coming through a fax machine. So what was going through your head in that moment as you saw that transmission kind of come through?
Yeah, this is a buddy I went to college with, and back in college we partied all the time. So it's just like, all right. He calls me up and he's like, "Hey man, what are you doing?" I was like, "I just opened up my own insurance practice." He's like, "Why are you doing that? You should look at mortgages. I made this much money last month." I'm like, "Yeah, right." So he faxed me a copy of his paycheck, and so he had my attention at that time.
Yeah. Sounds like maybe one of my buddies from college who I would be like, "No way, you're making that kind of money? No way." Or maybe they would say the same thing about me. I don't know, but I love how that sort of was the catalyst or the moment where you go, "Man, okay, so that kind of money can be made out in the real world." So your first job in the industry was working with one of the larger subprime lenders in the country. Kind of a boiler room atmosphere, right? Like refrigerators full of Red Bull, all that stuff. I'm sure there were probably like Porsches and Ferraris out front that people were struggling to pay for. What did that environment teach you that you could not have learned anywhere else?
I don't like that environment. No, I mean it's making calls, making tough calls, trying to convince people to say no, to convince them to say yes. And I'll be honest with you, that environment, made me realize that this is not how I want to do business. It's not how I want to build my business. So I wanted to build my business off something else, man, off, my name and off my reputation, not off cold calling or trying to convince people to do something that may or may not benefit them at all.
Yeah. So now you've started, or for a while now, you've been on the retail side, building up your personal brand and reputation and kind of representing the way you operate to the market. And your goal from day one was to help as many families as possible, regardless of loan size, right? From a $75,000 loan to $1 million property. Where does that drive come from? And I guess, why is that so important to you?
Have you ever heard of Zig Ziglar, motivational
I have.
speaker?
Okay. Absolutely.
One of the things that really stuck in my heart and in my mind is, you can have everything in life that you want if you help enough people get what they want. So that's always been a part of me, and my goal is to really make an impact on people, and how many families can I have a positive impact throughout the year, regardless of how much money I make. Because it does come back to.
How do you quantify impact? Because you said you're focused on making the impact. So what does that mean to you?
The impact basically means is making a positive impact on the individual or the family. If they have a great experience and they're going to refer you, that's the impact, because that's what you want. You want people that you do business with to refer you business. Okay. Yesterday morning, one of my clients that I've done 2 transactions for, family came from Mexico. Okay. They had a hard time. When I first started working with them, I had 3 people on the loan. That's a lot of documents to go through. That's a lot of work. Since then, I've done multiple transactions with these clients. And yesterday morning, they referred somebody else to me. They referred, I don't know, 3 or 5 people since I've helped them. That's the impact. Not just, hey, how much money can I make? But how can you make an impact on that person where they say, hey, if you need somebody, Richard Lytle, you need to call my friend Richard Lytle. And that's what I want people to say. My friend Richard Lytle, my mortgage advisor Richard Lytle.
Yeah,
So when
I love that.
when the client becomes a referral source for you, you're making an impact because that helps quantify and confirm that you did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, I love that. And Todd Duncan, I've heard him on stage last year at Sales Mastery, and I'm sure he said it a million times before, but this is my first time seeing him live, was, it's a 1-2 fill in the blank, right? Like you're the one to, and if it's a 1-to-1 interaction, well, then that's very transactional interaction. But if it's a 1-to-5 interaction where that one person then now refers you to 4 others, and now you've multiplied each interaction into multiple others, that's impact, right? And
Absolutely.
it's not treating that scenario or that interaction like a transactional interaction, and really taking that individual buyer's situation into full consideration, and really taking the time and care to give them a referable experience, so to speak. But that's not all easy to do, especially if you're overloaded. You've got a lot of, files coming in. Once your reputation is built, people want to work with you. And so, a lot of loan officers kind of struggle with this idea of leverage and getting support. And that took some time for you to figure out too. We talked about that in the past. What was the moment that really made it finally click for you that you needed to kind of start offloading some of the work? And, what was the first thing that you kind of stopped doing yourself?
Man, I tell you what, this took me a long time. I ain't gonna lie to you, because when you get used to doing everything, and then you hire somebody, and then you're trying to let them do it, but you keep jumping in. I mean, I'm still guilty of that, by the way. But I am definitely letting go majority of everything, and I've been doing this for over 20 years, guys. Where I have certain team members do certain things throughout the process. Gathering documents, reviewing documents, asking for conditions, reviewing conditions, communicating with the attorneys, communicating with the real estate partner. Sometimes I'll be involved more so in communicating with the real estate partner. It just really depends on the file itself and the personality profiles for the clients and the partners that are involved in the transaction. If there's somebody who needs a lot of hand holding, I may still talk to them because I want to make sure they feel comfortable. It's just the experience I want my clients to have is a great, emotional, happy experience. It's something always is something about me since I was a little kid. I always want to make people happy, and I'm always continuing to coach my team. Hey guys, they don't know everything about the mortgage industry like we do. Just talk to them like, they're just a regular person and educate them and make them happy. That's it. If we can do that, we're going to be extremely successful. And we are. We do a very, very good job on that.
Yeah. Well, that's something I've talked about with others in the past, is that, the longer you do this job, buying a home is such a big event, and one that not many people, loan officers included, do often. Right. And so it's easy, even as a loan officer, to forget what it's like to be a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And to not have that like blessing of perspective. And so you really do need to continue putting yourself in their shoes to remember what it's like to be them, because you go through the motions, right? You're funding 6, 7, 8, 10 loans a month. And it's just sort of like, okay, I got this down to a science. I know what all the terms mean. I know, I understand it, but they don't.
They don't.
And yeah, and to remember that, I think, is really important.
Check on that, Connor. And what happens is when a loan officer knows too much, or they think they know too much, they come across a little too cocky too much. That has bit me, by the way. Where you become really good, you get too, what's that word I'm looking for? Conceited, or
Okay. Yeah.
You think you're the almighty because you know a lot. No, that can kill a deal just like that. And from my experience, you still want to talk to them as they're a regular person. You know,
Yeah.
you don't have
So
to
do you
over.
mind if we like
Yeah,
unpack that experience
yeah,
a little
please,
bit? Like what
absolutely.
was it that happened in your world and what were the lessons kind of learned from that?
I was talking to a pastor one time, and he wanted to buy a house, and I'm going through his credit profile, and he had two BMWs. He had a handicapped child, and he was spending money, and I sort of called him out a little bit. At the same time, in my professional opinion, give him my professional opinion, he shouldn't be doing this type of deal, and he ripped me a new one. You know, he ripped me a
Sure.
new one, and I sat back and I let him do it. I let him do it. And I sat back, and I started thinking about what he said and how I approached him. I was like, you know what? He's right. I should never done that. You know, I don't know what else is going on in that man's world besides the guy's credit and his application. I mean, granted, you can tell a lot about a person, but it was in my position to pass judgment on him, especially as a pastor. But but I asked for forgiveness. He forgave me, and we chatted some more after that. But eventually, we started cut loose. But that was a great training for me because every client you have, any interaction you have, is still training. We're always training to become better. Okay, and that helped me out there. I'll give you another example. I was talking to another client, and I didn't think I did anything wrong, but she thought I did. And I communicated, said, listen, from the information you told me and the way you're doing your tax returns, you're doing it wrong. You're going to get hit with an audit from the IRS, things like that. And she ripped me a new one. She's like, I don't like your tone that you have with me. I was like, I didn't have a tone. But I had to sit back and think, did I have a tone? Because you have to watch it, because sometimes we don't think about that, right? You may be talking to your kids and your tone changes, and you don't know that, right? But from that call, what I experienced and what I learned from that training call, like I said, I like to call that a training call, is that I really have to be mindful of my tone also, because we don't know what's going on in that person's life on the other side. We don't know what's going on that day, what happened to them yesterday. And when we are the voice that can make an impact on somebody with the right tone.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out, Richard. I mean, they say a lot of communication is not necessarily what you say, but how you say it. And also to keep in mind, in throughout the process, again, the weight of the situation is so large that and anyone involved is really hanging on your every word. And because they want the end result to be a positive one, they want to buy the house and they need, that confirmation and all those things. So I think it's a really important call out there to be mindful of not just what you say, but how you're saying it and the way you're communicating, because that does leave a lasting impact. And kind of back to what we were talking about earlier, that impact. And, if you're kind of communicating in a way that makes people feel good about the process, because it's not what you did, it's how you make them feel,
That's right.
then that's the person they're going to remember to refer their friends and family and everyone else they know to. So but I want to kind of get back on this subject of kind of building the team, and because we
Yes.
took a
Yeah.
little detour there.
Yep.
I know that you've gotten to a place now where you've got someone on your team that the realtors are totally comfortable with calling. And I know that's a difficult challenge that some loan officers face when they start to add to their team. Everybody still wants to call them and they're like, why did I hire this person? They're supposed to be the ones taking the call. But your agents just love the guy. How did you get past the fear of letting go and trusting someone else to kind of be that person that is taking on a lot of that communication?
Okay. Yeah. So one of the hires that I did in the past 16, 18 months was a guy named Hunter Simmons. And the reason why I brought him on board is, I get a lot of leads, right? And don't get me wrong, I have another assistant that helps with some other things. But it's like, how can we help? I need to manage these leads a little bit better. Okay. It's a lot. When you're getting 2 or 3 leads a day, sometimes 8, sometimes 10. Sometimes 60 to 100 leads a month. And these are referrals, by the way. Okay. It's hard to manage that and be effective. So I brought on Hunter, and his thing was, he doesn't know, he's been in the mortgage industry before, but he wasn't in this particular role, right? And I was like, listen, Hunter, what I need help with is just to communicate. I have a lot of clients that are great clients, pre-approvals, great credit. I just want to have a system that keeps me in front of them, not just by email, a friendly phone call. So how are you doing? How are things going? And since then, he's been evolving to collecting some of the documents before they go into contract. Starting to review them, starting to calculate income. So I'm training him up a little bit, but that's his role right there. And he's great on the phone. He's great on the phone. My realtors love him. Wow, we love Hunter. We love him. So he's a young guy. He just got married. And by the way, I ordained his wedding. I got my certification to ordain his wedding. He wanted me to do that. So evidently I had an impact on him. But it's been great. Now we're always tweaking some things. We're always tweaking how we do our CRM. We're still tweaking and tweaking and tweaking. That's the thing about growing a team. When you start adding people, it doesn't immediately fix things that you want. As you grow, as you continue to grow your business and grow more time with your family, there's going to be things that you're going to consider, continue to train your team on to become better, to help leverage your time.
Yeah. Well, and I love that, because one thing that I hear in what you're saying is your business has reached a place where getting leads is not necessarily the number one challenge. The leads are coming in. Now, you've got to continue nurturing that, of course, and make sure that stays afloat. But I think a lot of what the industry coaches is go get more leads. Like, you see a lot of scripting about how to get the next lead, or where are we going to generate the next lead from. And what a lot of originators that once they reach a certain point struggle with is not necessarily the lead generation, it's the conversion side of it.
That's right.
And that's where the team starts to come in, because at some point, if all you're doing is taking on leads and prospecting for more leads, and you're just piling leads on top of leads on top of leads, your conversion starts to suffer, the loan officer starts burning out, and then mistakes get made, and there becomes a reputational risk involved with that. And so I love that you identified that there were so many leads coming in that it was the smarter move was to hire someone to take those in and do the intake, and then filter, and then get to you. So it's essentially, you've gone from growing production to now growing a business. And I think that's really cool that you've gone that way. And so I want to kind of transition a little bit, because in getting to know you, I learned of like a personal fitness journey that you've gone through, where started working out and made the decision that you can get out of the office by 5, so you can get to the gym by 6, and no excuses, right? No excuses about being too busy, because the excuses would not allow you to grow. How did changing like your physical health actually influence or help change the way you looked at running your business?
I tell you what, you see this face? I look good.
Yeah.
Well, look, things were starting to hang down a little bit, right? And my wife took a picture of me while we were at the beach, and she took a bunch of pictures and she posted it on Facebook. When I saw what she posted on Facebook, I told her to delete that picture now. She's like, "Why?" I was like, "I'm somebody's going to download it, and they're going to use it against me." So she took it off, she deleted it. Literally 30 seconds later, "Hey buddy," I get a text, "Hey buddy," and my buddy sends me a text message of that picture. And he does that little cutting thing out too. He took out the background and just did this little thing here, And
that's what friends are for, man.
Yeah, but it felt great. It felt great about a year or so later, because it took me a while to get into the fitness thing, to send him a picture, say, "What do you think now?"
Yeah. Baby.
So yes. So my neighbor got me into what we call F45. I don't have to think about it. It's usually a 45-minute workout. Great workouts that F45 has. They're always changing things up every month. You can go at your own pace, all that good stuff. And I've been doing that for almost 2 years. And my muscle mass has increased. My My numbers at the doctor's office has improved drastically, you know. So I'm seeing these improvements. Are they very fast improvements? No, they're not very, very fast improvements. I'm almost 50. I'll be 50 years old this year, but the improvements in my overall health has improved drastically. So getting out by 5:15 the latest, because it takes me a good while to get on the other side of town. It's pretty important to me because I want to get in there, work out, come home, and see my kids. And if I have to do a little bit of work afterwards, I'll do a little bit of work. But my goal is try to really knock out as much as I can, during the day as much as possible.
Yeah, I
So
love that.
yeah,
And so
man.
you've been building your referral business kind of using this 3-step prospecting approach that, I mean, pretty much anybody could get started on right away. Do you mind walking us through what those 3 steps are and how it all works?
All right. So first step. So if you're in the purchase business and you're getting realtors, or you're working realtors and you want to increase your realtor contacts, one is look at the contract and see who the listing agent is, right? And basically start communicating with that listing agent. Just start communicating. Just call and introduce yourself. If you're a local mortgage professional in that area, just let them know you're local, because realtors love local people. And just start communicating with the listing agent about the progress of the file. When you have that conversation, you start building that rapport with that agent. Talk to them about a program that you guys do in-house, or that you guys have access to, that can help them grow their business. Hey, Connor, this is Richard Lytle. I just want to let you know, I know we're doing a conventional loan for this client who's purchasing the house that you have listed, but we just rolled out with a DSCR loan. We just rolled out where we can actually use the income from AirDNA as the income to qualify for the property. Talk to them about that. You don't have to go throwing up on the conversation about that, but that can open up additional doors about, well, what is a DSCR? What do you mean short-term rental income? So that gives you an opportunity to talk to them more. So what happens there when you do the updates? Okay, you're not giving personal information out, guys. So be careful that when you communicate with the listing agent, don't be giving out personal information about the client. But when you give certain updates, you're opening up the opportunity to market yourself, to talk about yourself, to come up, to show that you are a mortgage expert in your role, and it helps build your name. Okay. Now, if the listing agent likes what you're saying, and you guys have a great rapport, invite them to coffee or lunch. And if I do invite them to coffee or lunch, I may say, hey, Connor, listen, I know we had some great conversations. You got like an agent that you could bring, maybe somebody who's new in the industry, that you can introduce me and come over for lunch, or come in for lunch. Now you're sitting with 2 people at one time. So your time is valuable. So if you can when you meet with somebody or schedule a meeting, see if that person could bring somebody else that can also help you, or make your time more efficient. So, and what's the other one there? Boom, boom, boom. I went over so many options with you because I do so many different things. I'm trying to share stuff that I don't want everybody to know, but something that's very, very simple, right?
That's all right. That's all right. Well, I just think it's great. Like, I love the leverage that you're creating in the, warmer introduction and meeting 2 people at the same time. It just, makes more better use of your time too at the same time. So I think that's really smart. And I know, when we talked before, also there was something that you mentioned to me, and I thought it was a really honest, I guess, admission that you kind of went through this period of time where you were comparing yourself to others and kind of looking around and seeing what others were doing, and kind of put you into a funk.
Yeah.
What would you say kind of pulled you what pulled you out of that? What was the mindset shift that made you go, enough of that?
I
That's
tell
pretty
you, I've
cool.
been in this industry for over 20 years, and when the rates went up and everything else, everybody was going through everybody's going through the same pain. But when I started seeing other people that have been in the business less time than me, a couple of years, were doing extremely well, I was like, what am I doing wrong? I started losing realtors to these other people. I was like, what am I doing wrong here? I've done extremely well, and you get into this funk. You start questioning yourself. Are you good enough anymore? And And, I went through that for like a year or so. And I was like, one day, I was doing this thing called Brotherhood with my church. And, at the end of this Brotherhood training that the church put on, and it's about 6 months long, we talked about what's holding us back and what do you want to release. And one of the things I wanted to release was compare myself. It's like, because that was the devil working in me, making me feel useless, and I'm not useless. I'm very good at what I do. And once I got rid of that, man, my business started going boom, 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 boom. I don't care what anybody else is doing. If they're doing well, great. They're doing amazing. If someone's been in the business for 1 year and they're double their production, great. Maybe I could learn something from them. Let's have lunch with them. But, comparing yourself can be a drive killer. Actually, it will be a drive killer. It will be a drive killer. So
yeah, absolutely, man. It's the thief of joy, right? And
the thief of joy. That's right, man. Don't compare yourself to other husbands. Don't compare it to somebody who may be a better fit than you. If you're getting better every single day, and you know it, that's what you need.
Right.
Okay. That's what you need.
It's a you against you game out there. So always looking for ways to continue improving on yourself and not necessarily trying to be someone else, because no one else can be you and you can't be them. So
that's right.
And one question, because you've been through some unique scenarios with mergers and, rumors flying around and, people leaving the company and all that kind of stuff. But you saw, maybe if I stay put, I can, there's some opportunity out there too. So how do you know when it's a good time to stay and then maybe when it's time to say, maybe I should look at something else?
When I came to New Res, it was called Caliber Home Loans, or Caliber.
Mm-hmm.
I guess New Res or Rhythm owned Caliber at that time when I joined, and I've been with them for over 4 years now. And when I first looked at Caliber, I was like, you guys are doing some amazing things, do this, do that. They had some great products, and I joined, and literally a couple months after that, people started leaving. The rumor mill was going around. The whole industry knew what was going on, and I just sat back and listened, right? And one thing that sat with me first was, am I closing loans right now? And am I is my support team good? And the answer was yes. Do I still have the programs to make me successful at my current company? The answer is yes. Do I believe that the higher executives are doing everything they can to make things better? And am I seeing any, some small improvements as we progress through the rumor mill? The answer was yes. So I was like, I'm going to just let all these people leave. One of the guys I was working for, I'm not going to mention his name. I would never work for him again. I hope he sees this podcast and he knows who I'm talking about. But, he left, and then some other people started leaving, and some other people started leaving. And I saw that as an opportunity where these people that were leaving, they were my interference. They were my interference to make things happen or make things more difficult. Once I eliminated that ceiling or that interference, I had more connection to the higher executives, the managers, the people that made the decision. And that's what I got. So
I love that, man.
Yeah. So anytime a company's going through something, you don't have to make the jump because of a rumor mill. You have to look at those things there to make a good education decision. I went through this with a previous company, and I was there for over 10 years. The rumor mill. Well, people started leaving. They left. It got better for me.
Right.
Pricing got better. Rates got better.
Right.
So that's my advice. If it's not broken, don't leave. Don't leave for money. When I came to this company, I had another company that was offering me double the money, but I was like, I like what they have here. I like what's going on. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all very great advice. And, oftentimes there's opportunity in kind of chaos or, and we can always find, something positive out of something that might not be going the way you want. I wouldn't say negative because sometimes it's just business and that's the way it goes. But I think what, at the end of the day, you've got to be honest about the situation you're in and honest about your role in the situation that you're in also. And if it's self-inflicted or if it really is something that has to change to be fixed, that's external. And those are difficult conversations that a lot of people have to kind of have with themselves to really, know what's going to be best for their future. But Richard, we've talked about a lot, man, and I want to give you an opportunity here before we say goodbye to just kind of speak your mind about anything that maybe we haven't covered. I don't know if there were questions that I haven't asked that you'd like to, have speak on, or anything that maybe you've thought of as we've been talking that you're like, man, I'd love to expand on that. But I want to give you that opportunity before we, wrap up here today.
Okay. So to all my colleagues out there, to people that are listening, I think that's extremely important. One thing is you matter. First of all, you matter to your families, to your wives, to your children, to your friends, and you also matter in this industry. Okay. How you work, how you delegate, how you time block, how you do things, that's extremely important to help become a better loan officer, a better you. Okay. If you want to get better in this industry, improve on yourself, not just at work, but also improve on yourself. Like we said earlier, I try to leave about 5:15, 5 to 5:15 to hit the gym. That little habit there helps you perform better, feel better, and starts to help you look at some other tasks that you need to take care of during the day to become more successful. Yeah, leaving on time for work, it's just not for working out, it's also, be with your family. Okay? There's a lot of great information out there to make you a better loan officer, just as this podcast. And if you guys have any questions and want to reach out to me and just want to pick my brain on something else, feel free. And I don't know if you want to put my number on here or not, but my number is 910-297-1494. I love talking to people. I love talking about growth. And I love seeing people grow humbly, passionately. What we do.
Love it, man. That's great. Well, Richard, thank you for being on the lowdown. Thank you for sharing your just insights, experiences, perspectives on everything. And I really appreciate you being here today and wish you nothing but the best in the future.
Connor, I really do appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much, man.